Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. Welcome to the Comprehensive Plan Task Force meeting for November 12th, 2024. My name is Al LeGros. I'm the chair of the task force, and I'd like to quickly go around and introduce everybody for the record, starting with the man here with the beautiful cap.
Peter Lieberworth.
Which way do you want to go? Dave Brown.
Amy Heibel.
George Prince.
Matt Gilly.
Kevin Johnson.
Matt James.
Bob Eaton.
I'm Mark Ironman.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Ann Naif.
Yeah, Mary Ann, thank you very much.
Welcome.
A couple of announcements before we start to the meat of the meeting. Next meeting, December 10th, we're not going to have a meeting at the end of the month because of Thanksgiving. So December 10th will be our next meeting. And do you want to say anything, Mary Ann, about the water conservation meeting that was held October 30th?
Oh, it's got a little tension. I'll do it this way. Yes, I do. It was really great. Al, you were there. We did sort of a tag team between three of us for the presentation, and Dave, you were there too. And I just know standing there and looking at everybody got really engaged in it, I thought. And we did basically worked on conservation and harvesting of water. We went through, and the big highlight of the night was going through and talking about leaks. And Wendy gave us some really cute stories for people to get engaged with it. And Bob, you were there as well. I think you were the brunt of one of her little illustrations, as I recall.
Yeah.
But anyhow, afterwards, I'm still getting messages from people who were there coming up with ideas of what they would like to do to promote programs to think about leaks because of all the amount of water that is lost just from leaks in a toilet or a garden hose. So it left us all with a really good feeling. I think people were engaged, and we're looking forward to the next program in the spring, which will be a combination of programs, but we're going to talk about harvesting of water, and getting into more than just cisterns, but some other ways we can harvest just through our landscaping and everything else.
Well, it's great, and it's also very, the timing was excellent too because of the drought that we're sort of in right now. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I asked the question before the meeting about are any wells
Right.
failing here and what we can do to conserve water. It was very timely, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. The other, just as an aside, if you recall, back in June, they said we had reached our annual water rainfall back in June.
Oh, really?
And here we are in October, we're in a drought, so it just makes our story better about harvesting water and keeping it
Yeah,
for later use.
great. Okay, next, we had one set of minutes sent out, the 8th of October minutes. I'm going to ask if the task force will approve those minutes for posting. Any objection to that?
No.
None.
Okay. Just a quick note about the minutes. One of the reasons the minutes have been sort of irregular in the last couple of months, Kayla, who normally puts the minutes together, has been slammed. She not only works at the Harpswell Elementary School, but also is now in the process of transitioning and taking on some responsibilities since Gina has submitted a resignation and will be leaving the staff shortly. So she's been slammed, so we'll catch up at some point, but I appreciate that. The 8th of October minutes have been approved. Okay. Tonight, the main topic is a continuation of the future land use discussion. I know Mark has sent out some revised draft comments and so on, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at that. Mark, what would you like to say going into this discussion at this point?
Okay. Everybody should have two things. And if you don't have paper copies and you need paper copies, there were paper copies over there on the table of both a document called Future Land Use, and the revised date on this is 11/9, and it includes two parts. The first 6 pages were cleanup and editing of what we discussed at the last meeting. I sent that out separately and asked people if they had any comments or questions about that, to get back to me on it. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that tonight unless there's a burning issue. But the second part is then what starts on page 7 of that future land use, called land use designations. And at a meeting a couple months ago, I think it was David said, don't give me those charts and tables and numbers about this and that. Give me a narrative about what we're trying to accomplish and what these things should do. And that seemed to resonate with people, so that's what I tried to do. So this is the what, if you will. And then tonight, or this morning earlier, I gave you Mark's future land use plan map. And I'm going to say, why are you laughing at that? Because I apologize for this being so late, but as you know, the town re-engaged Viewshed 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Judy was out of town and I was out of town. And so finally, we were able to catch up last week, take the earlier draft of the future land use plan and do quite a bit of revision to it to try and make it fit what the narrative, the text says. So in a sense, page 7, starting there, is the what, and then the map is the where. I tried to kind of work with Judy to simplify things and make it a little easier. There is a note at the bottom that says the Coastal Resource Protection District C shoreland zoning. That's because the town with the planning board is involved in a separate process as part of the shoreland zoning update to address that. Let me take you for a very quick overview and then we can come back. The land use designations are intended to be, I guess I would call them concepts of what would be reflected in an update of the town's 2 zoning ordinances, or if they were ever to be put together into one. And it's broken down into 4 parts. The first one talks about natural resource designations. It says coastal resource protection. That has been separated out because in the discussion, it talks about making provisions for marine-related uses, commercial fishing, that wouldn't apply into inland resource protection districts. Those are not shown on the map at this point for the reason I just said. The second one are inland resource protection districts. These are predominantly wetlands that the state, and a buffer around the wetlands that the state requires as part of shoreland zoning. Those are the areas that are kind of the, well, in the earlier version, they were bright green, now they're less bright green, but you can see them in there. And then the third that we discussed at the last meeting was incorporating stream protection districts. It's hard to see, but if you look carefully, you will see some blue lines that reflect streams that, this is not a complete accurate set of streams,
There's not
but
many.
it's
It's not many.
well, but it's, the intention is to say that there are streams, and that streams that meet the Natural Resource Protection Act definition of streams would be included in this. So that's sort of the idea of being conservation districts, limited restricted development areas. The second part is then shoreland. And what this says, and there's an omission here that I will admit to in a minute, says that, as we discussed, the existing CF1 and CF2 districts on here get merged into one commercial fishing designation. And it's the sort of royal blue strips along the coastline are the areas that are currently designated as commercial fishing. And what the plan says is that with the exception of that combination, there are no other proposed changes in the comprehensive plan, but that there should be sort of a comprehensive relook at the shoreland zoning going forward. The thing I forgot about was that we created as part of this, maybe I should say I created, an islands district. The islands currently, the offshore islands, part of them are zoned shoreland residential, part of them are zoned interior district, and it probably really doesn't make a lot of sense, and you look at it. And so what I did is say, let's create an island district, put everything in, and we can deal with that. So shoreland doesn't change a lot except for the commercial fishing consolidation into one district and making the offshore islands a district of their own. Then existing development area, developed area designation. This is sort of carryovers from the earlier draft that says there are areas in the town which were developed pre-zoning. Some of these areas are essentially totally non-conforming with respect to lot size, setback, impermeable surface coverage, etc. And what these two districts or designations propose to do is to allow within some of those areas, the one in sort of the pink, the other in the orange, of saying that if you have a smaller lot, if you have an existing house, there would be sort of provisions where you could do renovations, you could expand within a limited area. But if somebody's going to create new lots and do development, you have to meet the rural standards. So it's really a way to allow people who have property in these areas to make improvements as long as they deal with sort of being compatible with the rest of the properties and they don't create problems for groundwater use sort of thing. And they are, if you look at them, almost all of them are kind of, you know, down at the end of the necks, and where the historic development pattern is. And then the final one is what I called rural conservation designations. Rural areas, the sort of sandy tan on here, the bulk of the non-shoreland area, after you carve out those developed neighborhood areas. And then included in that, I put this offshore islands district and tagged in the existing Eagle Island historic designation that addresses what happens there. So that's sort of what I did. And my disclaimer is, while I think Judy and I approached this thoughtfully, we did not have a lot of time. And because she was away, I was away, she was in meetings, back and forth. And so we were making changes here as of this morning to give you something to work with. So that's essentially where we are in putting together a draft of the what, the land use designations, the where those designations would apply, the map.
Quick question, Mark. I see too, that we have buildings 2023 and conserved land. Is that something, wait a minute, maybe it is there, and I can't see it.
Yeah, it is. And actually, what happened is
Yeah, it's there.
Judy had the conserved land much bolder crosshatched.
Yeah,
And I said, you know, take it down. And she took it down, but took it down too far.
okay, yeah,
And so we can tune that up.
okay.
And the buildings, if you look carefully, you'll actually see needlepoint black dots
Okay,
that are buildings, but again, at this scale, they don't really
They don't show.
read and
Okay.
what's there. And, you know, sort of the concentration of buildings and small lots are what originally drove the creation of the pink and orange areas. This version pulls them really back to only areas that are substantially developed. So for instance, if you go down at the end of Potts there, that pink area was about 3 times as large in the March version and had a lot of undeveloped land. I went through and tried to get it down to where there really were a lot of houses, a lot of smaller lots. Same thing in a couple of other areas. We cut back the Cundy's Harbor area and again eliminated areas that were undeveloped that could be subdivided or what have you, primarily because of issues of concerns about groundwater.
Comments? Sir?
I really like, Mark, how you kind of made them all vague narratives. I think that does a,
Don't say vague.
or not as descriptive.
Flexible, no,
Simplified.
flexible.
More simplified, more simplified.
Yeah.
The only question I have is, and I'm asking this just because, from personal experience, under inland resource protection, where it says gear used in commercial fishing should be allowed to be stored seasonally as long as it doesn't compromise resource value. Who determines seasonally, and who determines if it compromises the resource?
All right, understand the process. The comprehensive plan provides a guide, a framework. The next step is for somebody, the planning board, the implementation committee, whatever you decide to put in the implementation section, then takes these, to use your term, Matt, vague ideas and shapes them into ordinance language. So that's a two-step process. And so this provides, I think in my email, I may have used the expression, kick the can down the
did.
road.
You did.
And in a sense, that's what this does. This kicks the question of the specifics. You know, for instance, if you look at the language in the rural section about density and intensity of development, boy, did I weasel there. But it talks about what the criteria should be for determining what it should be. And it doesn't say it should be 80,000 or 200,000. It says it should reflect the capacity. It was interesting, and this is really kind of aside, but Judy and I were both recently at the Northern New England Planning Association meeting, and one of the sessions was about what I used to call variable lot size. That New Hampshire, for a number of years, has not said, you gotta have a 40,000 square foot lot. They have had a system based upon soil suitability, and they are looking at expanding that to be more site-specific, if you will, in terms of what the carrying capacity of the land is. If you have studied the groundwater studies dating back to Bob Gerber's report from
1987.
40 years ago, Bob talks about a range of densities that are appropriate. And so, you know, thinking in those terms might be something that's more appropriate as the town tries to revise its ordinances than saying 60,000 square feet or whatever.
Could we drop the word seasonally?
I'm sorry.
Could we drop the word
Yeah, I was gonna
seasonally
ask that.
from the commercial fishing should be allowed to be stored seasonally as long as it doesn't compromise the resource value? Because I see there being contentious, even with the implementation committee, you know, who determines seasons? You know, like, I live in a resource protected zone and I have commercial fishing gear there year round, but what it is changes during each season, you know, sometimes it's big buoys, sometimes it's small buoys. But you tell me I can only have big buoys.
Don't ask me the question.
I think if we
Ask-
got rid of
Wait,
seasonally,
ask them the question.
Yeah, you get rid of the word seasonal.
yeah,
I got a friend that doesn't fish between May and November.
right.
His gear's on the bank.
I,
And then
I
come
don't
November,
understand the
he's,
Yeah,
Because
legit,
I like that he has
doesn't compromise.
that doesn't compromise the resource value.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean-
that's a good thing
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
to have.
just get rid of the word seasonal.
Why
Yeah,
was it-
because, I mean, that's a logistics nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
You guys?
I guess
Well-
my question
Well, how
is,
would
why
you do
is
that?
it there? Why did you choose to
well,
put it?
I chose that because I think there have been some comments about the properties where gear and boats show up
And never leave.
and never leave. And I can think of maybe 3 of them in my tenure where we've been on site walks with the planning board where there were fires and there were the remains of whatever. So maybe seasonally isn't the right,
I think you hit the nail on the head with the don't compromise the resource value, because I
Yeah,
think you
that's
can
good.
come right in with what you were just describing and say, look, you got 10 bolts and
Yep, fine.
6,000 traps, you're ruining the stream.
yeah. All right,
Yeah.
take out seasonally.
Yeah,
All right, I got my editing pen out.
sounds good.
Yep.
Excellent job, though.
Any other comments or
It's a lot of
questions?
reading.
I think it's a huge step forward.
Okay.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah.
it
Well
really
done.
is very
I think you
thorough.
did pretty good if the worst we can come up with is one word. You know?
Oh, no, wait, we're not done yet.
I was trying to end it for you.
No, I do have a question, and I do think this is really, really good. But I'm looking at how we're gonna manage the town's fractured bedrock aquifer. And we're talking about a
Which
number,
page are you on, ma'am?
page 4.
That's the one I said we weren't gonna discuss.
Oh, I'm
That was
sorry.
last meeting. But go ahead.
Yeah,
why
nice
don't you
try,
go?
We
nice
won't,
try.
We won't. It was just gonna be a question of how you implement this when we're talking about it in the next section. Are we ever going to be able to know specifically where there's good water and not?
Where are you? I'm not finding that
Okay.
on my page.
On
which
page-
point number?
I'm on policy 2.3. And it says, base decisions about groundwater resource on science. And then we say, undertake a comprehensive update of the previous groundwater studies to evaluate the ability of the aquifer to support additional development. Is that something that is possible?
I think the answer is yes.
No.
Is that something, okay, I just look at, we've had these,
Well, here's, Mary Ann,
I'm trying to just come up with how we would accomplish this.
maybe this is looking at the world in rose-colored glasses.
Okay,
In spite of what Jessica
Jessica,
said, there actually has been quite a bit of work done at mapping the yields of bedrock aquifers. And there's quite a bit known about areas already where there are high-yield wells and where there are not so high-yield wells. However, though that information, as far as I know, is not very helpful in certain respects,
right?
in that it doesn't really say, well, how deep are those wells? And are the wells that are not very productive only 30 feet deep, when if you went 150 feet, it would be different? And so I think what Jessica was saying, that they would like to look at the ability of the groundwater to be mined, or whatever you want to call it, by having better data. I think, you can go look at the bedrock aquifer map that was done 25 years ago, and it shows cracks on the neck. And if you go to Two Coves Farm and you ask them how much water they get lots of water. Why? Because they're right on one of those cracks in the bedrock. So I think I don't think it will ever be an exact science. I have been known to call it voodoo science.
Emphatically, yeah.
Because nobody really knows where the water that's coming out of David's well is coming from and how it's getting there. Generally, they will say it runs downhill through the cracks, and, you know, if you're up here and the well's down there, the water in the cracks doesn't run back up the hill. So I think the answer is, I think the town could do a lot better than it currently does. And I would hope that it does that with some professional assistance.
Well, instead of evaluate, you could say estimate. You know, because evaluate
Evaluate is,
implies a level of precision
Yes.
that may not be there. But if you say estimate or approximate
Another
or something.
possible sort of editorial change would be, change it from base decisions about the groundwater resource on science.
yeah,
That sort of implies there's going to be an answer to this.
Yeah.
But I think we could base it on evidence,
Yeah.
which would cover the things that you've said.
Okay, help me. I'm
best
just not following where these things are, and maybe
We're
it's,
talking about policy 2.3.
yeah.
2.3.
The problem with science is, well, I was gonna, go ahead.
Let me just
Yeah.
finish so that he understands. Base decisions about groundwater resources on science sounds to me like we'll have a better
Oh,
answer.
you're talking about the big one.
The big one
Yeah.
here, right at the,
Oh, all
yeah, it's in
right,
bold.
all right. And what would you like to edit that
I
to?
was going to suggest evidence in place of science. And
I
evidence
don't-
covers what you have there, I think.
I don't get that. I mean, what is evidence? What is that?
More data about whose wells are going dry.
That's
More data
science.
about what, that
That's
could be
science.
evidence rather than science.
You could say available science. I mean, it's, you know, you gotta do whatever you wanna do, guys, but I think I,
Science-based evidence.
really, I mean,
Well, science is a little bit, it's a kind of
I
a
know.
talking
The
point
word
word right
science
now.
is a dodge. It's a dodge, and this is why science gets such a bad
See,
name.
I disagree with that.
No, I
Having
think
a
it gets, well, let me finish. I think it gets a bad name because people say, it's based on science. That's supposed to stop all discussion. She says, ooh, science, sure, yeah. I think that David is in the right ballpark, and unfortunately, it means adding more words, which I hate to do in these things. But anyway, I think based on best available evidence or something like that, best available data, that's what we're doing it on. And to say
Liquid
it's
lead
science is
You're
like.
adding the extra words.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm led to that because I think the word science is a dodge. And
What I proposed was based on evidence.
that's right.
And
And I,
same
yeah,
number of words.
okay, that's fine. It's better than science.
Okay,
And I'm sorry for bringing it up, except that we're referring to this section later on, in the section we're on now,
Oh, we don't have to.
yeah.
I think,
Okay,
I think that's a good,
anything else?
that's a good suggestion, yeah. Because, you know, I can understand the reluctance in implying that what that's all about is subject to very precise measurement, which is probably a bridge too far. So I think that's a good suggestion. Okay.
All right, anything
Anything
else?
else? Yeah, anything else?
All right,
So
See
Matt had
you-
it almost
see you in a
right,
month.
2 corrections.
Close.
okay, now I'm being very serious.
Okay.
That's
I
a
have
pregnant
been-
pause right there.
Well, I was marking my words carefully.
No.
I have been unfair to the members of the task force in terms of getting this information to you in time to review, and particularly with respect to the map. And so, Mr. Chairman, you know me, I like to give out homework assignments.
Yep.
I would really like people to take the draft of the future land use plan. I'm gonna say the number of comments that I got on the first part. I think in soccer terms, they call it nil.
We were told not to do this outside of the meeting.
No, you were told to send your comments to me.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Yes. So I do think this is important, that this is going to be looked at by people and say, well, I don't think it makes sense that you drew the line of the pink area there, or why didn't you include that neighborhood in the pink area? I think it is important that each of you take the map, take the designations, and do some homework before Thanksgiving, and get me any individual feedback you have, both editorially, as we did tonight, or policy-wise questions, so that I can have time to kind of think about things, ask those questions, look at them if I need to with Judy. And so when we meet on December 10th, that we can have a pretty final version of the land use plan. And the reason I say that is the chair is going to talk in a minute about what else we need to do. But the next step is to update the implementation strategy. And before you can update the implementation strategy, you have to know what you're going to implement. And so we need to kind of bring the land use piece to agreement, and then we can bang out edits to the implementation strategy.
Okay.
Okay. Did I hear?
Other questions, comments on Mark's presentation? All right. Outstanding. And just a couple of comments here.
Whoa.
Yes, sir.
Mark, will you send us all your statement about what you need from us in order to move this forward?
Surely.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
You gonna talk about timeline?
Yeah, I'll talk
Okay.
about
Oh, I
that.
thought you were going on to final comments.
No. I wish I could, but,
He put his hat on, for God's sake.
Someone put his hand on it. I thought he
all
was
right.
leaving.
I want to give everybody sort of a rough sketch about where I think we need to go, and I welcome comments, but we've had a meeting before this meeting, when I say we, Matt, Mark, and I, and number one, I asked Matt to come up with an edited product. He's been working on edits based on what we've been talking about for the last number of months, plus looking at the inventory chapters and so on, by our December meeting. I think it's important for all of us as a task force to look at that and see where we are before we start putting it out on the web or something like that. So by next meeting, hopefully we'll have an edited product. I expect it to be shorter than what we have right now. I expect it to be in two sections, the standalone section in the front, which is really the key part, and then the backup section, inventory chapters, is the second part. Next, we're going to look for a date to brief the select board. in January, to let them know where we are, and what progress we've made, and so on and so forth. And the contents of that will be put together, in the next several weeks. But sometime in January, we'll have a meeting with the Select Board. We need to have a public hearing in February. And at that public hearing, what I want to do is not only bring out the key parts of the draft, but also what we have done in the last 6 or 8 months in response to the input that we got from the community, to let them know that we've listened, we've responded, we've made changes, and so on. I am volunteering to give that presentation. I've been thinking about it for a while. I don't want Viewshed or somebody else to give it, and if you guys will let me, I'll put that thing together and make sure you guys see it before we do it. The public hearing, we need a public hearing, recognizing that our next town meeting is going to be, did you say the 8th of March?
Normally, it would be the second.
Second Saturday in March, sometime
Saturday.
in February, we're going to have a public hearing.
We don't have much time.
The question that I have is, should we have anything before the big public hearing? Do you think we need to have something before the public hearing?
I'm just thinking, if you're having a public hearing in February, it gives you no time to make changes.
Yeah,
Before
I mean, I think we were sort of spitballing this, if you will.
I would, if we could pull the first, you're gonna have another public hearing, but you're gonna have questions. And
Yeah.
you might have to have a second one.
Well, I mean, the issue is, I mean, normally, if you have a public hearing, it needs to be 30 days before the town meeting. But since this is a revision to something that's come up before, there may be some wiggle room in terms of the timeline. So, I mean, I would like to have the public hearing as far in advance of the
Yeah, if we could.
public hearing as possible. But that's gonna mean that if you wanna have something before, like what we did with the reaching out to the 3 parts of Harpswell, if you will, Cundies and Orrs Bailey, and that's gonna have to be orchestrated. Or we can have one additional meeting kind of tailored to some of the hot issues, if you will, that we've addressed. I'd ask you to think about that, and, at the next meeting, maybe we can nail that down in terms of,
And maybe it could be, I don't know, maybe it could be neighborhood type, I don't know, but I think we need a little more than one.
yeah,
One
one big.
big thing with the public.
Yeah,
Before we vote.
okay,
Well, if you did one, whatever you bring it to the select board, have it after that. That way, if
yeah,
the
Right.
select board agrees with what is there,
yeah,
it might carry some weight when you have your public meeting.
okay,
Sometimes it
That's
does,
true,
sometimes it
that's good,
doesn't.
yeah.
okay, all right, good.
So the draft will be available to the public before the public hearing, obviously.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's gonna go to us hopefully by our December meeting. And then sometime after that, we'll put it on the website or whatever, we'll get it out to everybody to make it available, so that there's gonna be several months for that thing to be reviewed and looked at and so on, so,
But, Alan,
yes,
one of the questions you had in the agenda was, what should be in the December anchor article?
yeah,
And one of my thoughts was, maybe that could be a summary of what we heard from the public in response to the first one, and how we've responded to that. So we give people a chance to say, okay, you have responded to my concern, or you haven't. And that would get them ready for these
Yeah.
meetings.
okay. That's one, the other thing I was thinking about was looking at the goals, policies, and strategies section and kind of summarizing that. But I mean, whatever we decide, I mean, ideally, it should be done by the end of the week, so I'm prepared to do that. If you guys want me to go in that direction,
My sense is that it would be helpful for us to say to people, here's what we heard,
Okay,
and here's how we're responding. So that they get a chance to say, well, you didn't hear my point, or
yeah.
that's an okay response, or whatever.
You guys
I
think that's?
agree, that's the whole reason we're here again, is because we got so much public pushback, is
Yeah.
they wanted us to change stuff, so they should be made aware of.
Okay, so I'll craft something for the anchor that addresses what we've been doing in terms of response to the public and some of the changes that
And
they
then
can,
we might follow up with, by having smaller meetings, as
Right,
you're
right.
suggesting.
Also, the easiest way to find the plan,
yeah,
say, the link, like,
Yeah.
because when I first started looking for this thing online, you go here, you click there, you go down to here, you go to this
Yeah, that's
menu.
true.
If you wanna find the information, you have to refer to the Mitchell Field Committee, you have to refer to
Yeah.
this committee.
okay, so it's
If
gonna,
we
it's
just
gonna
had
be on the
some sort of a
website.
link where people could just say, copy, go on their thing and boom, they're there.
Yeah, ideally, it should be on the website.
Yeah.
We should have a copy available here in the town office, and we put it out in the libraries typically. I don't know if anybody has any other suggestions, but those are the three.
It is hard to find.
Yeah, it
It
was.
is hard to find.
Hopefully it won't be, but it was.
Is it better now? We have an IT guy, Jim
Yeah,
Barbarski.
it seemed, yeah, I went on today and it seemed like 2 clicks and I was there. I was like, yeah,
Okay, so
better
Jim,
than it
so
was.
we'll make sure
Definitely
Jim
better.
Yeah,
simplifies that as much as
But
possible.
it was, Judy was handling that piece of the website. Now, she's probably not handling that any longer, right?
Judy? No.
No, I'm.
Yeah,
I'm
because it
guessing-
was, that's why you could never make any changes to it. unless it
Right,
went
right.
through her.
I think maybe Jim did
I would also
something.
say, all the relevant documents that are mentioned in the future land use plan should be right there as well with the current
Attached.
plan.
Is there
Every
any
relevant
way
document.
that, like, we can make it too, so if there's a relevant document that's cited in something, they can click on like a link right there that will bring it to said document?
It should be there.
It really has to happen.
Okay, well, I guess we'll talk to Jim. I'll talk to Jim and,
Yeah, that's an IT thing, I guess.
yeah.
You're gonna have
That's
to
what Jim's
provide him
paid
with-
for.
You're gonna have to provide him with where it is, or,
Yeah.
you know, you can't just tell him to provide the link, you gotta give him a way to get it.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Well, that's why we should do it, because if he can't find it, then that means the general public
Yeah,
can't
no
either.
way.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that sound, everybody seem to agree with that basic approach? Okay. I will put together an article for the Anchor that talks about how we've responded and the things that, major things that we've done to respond to the, and hopefully that will ease us into the process going forward. Anything else?
Do your homework.
Okay, getting back to Mark,
Send us ours.
look at this plan, so next month at December, we're still gonna be talking about the remnants of the future land use plan.
It depends what I get from people.
Okay, all right, so we'll close out the future land use plan in December, and,
Al, all I'm gonna say is at the beginning, I said this is Mark's map. You all need to look at
Right.
it and make sure that when we leave here in December, that this is the task force map with any edits or changes or whatever.
okay, great. So people that don't have copies of the map, there are some copies back there.
If you're gonna write the Anchor article for December about the public's concerns and what we've done to address it, but we haven't really finished up with the future land use plan, and that was most of the public's objection, how can we, how can you write that article, I guess? Until we know what the future land use plan is. Because I think what was that?
I think we can talk about things like basically we've tried to simplify the plan, we've taken out the mixed-use district, we've taken out the specific districts, town-owned land for the affordable housing and so on. I mean, we can say some specific things, and just basically say that the final,
But a lot of that stuff you just mentioned is in here still.
I was gonna say, you can probably pull a lot right out of this.
Yeah.
From Mark's.
but the final, you know, the final, I guess, plan, if you will, will be, is still being resolved and decided. Details, you know, will be decided in future. We can come up with some words. I mean, I think we can say we've addressed the major issues and we're still working on some of the details, but I think if we just point out some of the major issues, that will be something that would be important.
And guess, what do we all think was the biggest issue from the public?
Well, I think one of the issues obviously was housing.
That was the issue.
It was
you
the
know,
issue.
it-
It was
Yeah,
just
that's what I
that we
thought,
had
too.
districts.
No, we had a comp meeting, now all they want to talk about was the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the affordable housing, the mixed use and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, housing, and-
Well, let me go back.
okay.
No.
It seems to me that the first thing is to say that the intention of this task force is to bring a revised plan to March town meeting. You all know that, but 98% of the voters don't know that this process has been going on. Second, I think it would be advisable in that article to tell the public what this task force has been doing, what it heard, what it has been doing. I mean, you've gone through, looked at all the goals and policies. The Affordable Housing Working Group went back and looked at all of the housing stuff and revised its report. You've looked at all the policy recommendations. I think you want to, in this article, create the, if you will, the record that says, okay, here's what we've heard, here's what's been going on, and after the first of the year, we're going to be doing some outreach efforts to listen to how well you think we did.
I'm gonna say again, you better reference everything in this future land use plan that's mentioned. And you better make a direct reference to it and make it available on the website.
I agree.
I'm a little confused in what way, though.
For the anchor article or for the final plan?
For
Let's talk about the
for
final
whatever
plan.
is on the town's website.
Yeah, I'm just, could you explain it further? Because I'm not sure how, we normally do reference these type of things with an appendices, so I'm kind of,
Do you want like a reference list separate, as a separate document on the website, or like hyperlinks within the?
Hyperlinks.
hyperlinks, okay.
Hyperlinks.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't think the anchor article.
No.
No, you
no,
can't
no.
put a high.
First of all, the anchor article is only supposed to be 500 words.
They're short.
Like one URL.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be all
That's
references.
So, yeah, I'll do the best I can to put this in an article that's fits where the anchor wants us to be, so. All right, anything else? All right, meeting's adjourned.